thousands of people have mysteriously vanished in America's wilderness. Join us as we dive into the deep end of the unexplainable and try to piece together what happened. You are listening to Locations Unknown.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Locations Unknown. I'm your co-host, Joe Irado, and with me, as always, is a guy who can unscramble an egg, Mike Vandebogart.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you once again to all of our amazing listeners for tuning in. A couple of quick announcements here before we get going. First, some new Patreon shout-outs. So we've got Catherine Pierce, Ermani Smallwood, Heidi Wickman, Misty Cossack, Shelby Ellswick, Kara Peterson, Rob Karras, James Batman.
I really thought and hoped it was Bateman.
James Batman. I'll have to check the spelling on that one. And Summer Viestra. So thank you once again for supporting the show. Everything you guys do really makes a difference, and it's why we are here is because of you.
You're doing great, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. We've been off a little bit, so
yeah, I've been hiking the mountains. Mike's been moving his house,
yeah,
just moving boxes.
We've got to dust off the cobwebs and get back on the saddle here.
Yep.
So, if you want to call the show and leave a voicemail, you can always call 208-391-6913. And if you want to help support the show in other ways, we've got stores on Facebook, our website. You can subscribe to us on Patreon, YouTube memberships, Twitter.
Twitter, is that one going?
It's close. I think we're like the next stage of approval. So
all right. It might not even be on the internet by the time we get approved.
Yeah. We do have Facebook subscriptions now. We don't have it up and running yet, but that's coming. So pretty much you can subscribe to us on any platform, wherever you listen. And if
you're bad with money, you could subscribe on every platform.
Yeah. Or just send envelopes full of cash. We'll take those too. Joe, any updates from your end?
Yeah, the research help on this episode was from Kylie Heiss, and she helped us not only research the episode, but assisted in doing the interview for the episode.
That's right. We got an interview.
Yep. Shout out to Kylie. And also, we have a very exciting patron-only episode coming up where a fan of the show, John Woods, took one of our older episodes where I believe we were talking about how great a Bearnado movie would be as opposed to Sharknado. And John Woods took to the web, drafted up a couple, 3 movie posters, and had AI generate movie scripts for each movie. They're not too long, so we're going to read through all 3 Bearnado movies.
I'm excited for this because I know of the general topic, but I have not seen any of this. So
I almost didn't tell Mike what the topic was. So this will be, Michael, it'll be a reaction.
This might be our ticket out of here. Maybe it gets picked
filming
up.
3 Bearnado movies.
Amazon picks us up for a 3 Bearnado movie set.
Just wait till you see who plays us. Yeah, the AI gave us actual movie stars to play us, as well as other characters that interact with us in the movie.
Oh, wow.
Because it's you and me.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to tell you.
Oh, I'm excited now.
So now you got to sign up for Patreon because you're not going to hear any of this. And I only read the first one. I didn't read the other ones. And I was rolling on the ground laughing.
Maybe we'll post one of the posters as a teaser, and then you have to...
I'll post like a couple snippets.
Okay.
They're not getting the whole thing.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear this.
Yes, it's really good.
Excellent.
Yep. All right, everybody, let's gear up and get out to explore Locations Unknown. June 12th, 2023. Police are called due to a missing child. He took the family van in the middle of the night and camping gear. The search began immediately, uncovering an abandoned camp and a cell phone. Join us this week as we investigate the chilling mystery of James Yoblonski.
What?
You can go.
Oh, I'm doing the location.
Yeah, I got this one.
Oh, okay. Switching things up here. I was just waiting for
Absolutely.
Joe to talk. All right.
I just pointed at Mike. He's like, what do you want?
Yeah.
That's why I love that we don't edit this.
Yeah. So we'll cut that, though. Post-production.
No, we won't.
Yeah, we won't. So name of the location is Baraboo Bluffs. This is sub-location is Baxter's Hollow and Devil's Lake State Park. I believe I've been there. I believe you've been there.
Oh, yeah, I go rock climbing there.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool place to hike. It's kind of one of the only really cool places in southern Wisconsin for hiking.
I should be honest. I've gone rock climbing there like twice.
Okay.
I made it sound like I go all the time, and I listen. I'm like, no.
He goes every weekend.
I know. I don't.
They know him.
I want to go.
Yeah.
It's actually not that far away. I have no excuse not to get out there a lot in the summer.
So it's located obviously in southwest Wisconsin. It's just south of the Wisconsin Dells. It was established in 1911. Baxter's Hollow was designated a state natural area in 1970. The Devil's Lake area sees around 3 million people annually, so it's a very busy place here in Wisconsin.
It's like one of the nicer nature destinations in Wisconsin that's not just rolling hills.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. If you're ever here for a trip in Wisconsin, it's worth taking a day trip out there. And the hike is it's pretty easy you can hike all the way around the lake. You're kind of up on bluffs that overlook the lake. It's pretty cool, but it does get real busy in the summer. So if you go early. So a little history of the area. So Baxter's Hollow, it's the Nature Conservancy's largest preserve in the state of Wisconsin. A village called Otterville was attempted to be established with gold mining, saw and feed mills, and maple syrup making, but they had no luck. That's a very weird mix of stuff. So, gold mining, feed mills, and maple syrup.
Yeah, that's why we drink a lot in the state. We're
Yeah.
just very confused.
So the Devil's Lake area was originally inhabited by the Ho-Chunk people. The original name was Wakakak. You're
You're going to get in trouble just because of how you said it.
Yeah, we'll cut that too.
No, we won't.
Yeah, we won't. And it was described as a sacred place. Interesting facts about Wisconsin. So the first ever ice cream sundae was served in Two Rivers, Wisconsin in 1881.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. Door County, Wisconsin has 300 miles of shoreline. So if you've never been to Door County, that's another amazing place to visit if you're in Wisconsin. Appleton, Wisconsin is home to the world's first hydropower plant on the Fox River in 1882. Pretty cool. Wisconsin has more than 25,000 miles of snowmobile trails. And I assumed that because a lot of people I know in the winter go snowmobiling up north.
Yeah, I've never done it.
I've never snowmobiled either.
I've driven a snowmobile, but
Yeah.
definitely have never gone. I mean, they go bar to bar for hundreds of miles, like a day.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes they do drink in snowmobile, which leads to some accidents.
I think most of them drink in snowmobile.
Yeah, I think you're
The
right.
snowmobile trails literally go from bar to bar. That's not like hyperbole. They literally are designed to go to different bars in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So here's a little bit about the features of the area. So our friends at the Köppen Climate Classification, it has a humid continental mild summer, large seasonal temperature contrast, hot summers, cold winters. I can vouch for that as a Wisconsinite. It could be 80 one day and 30 the next within a span of 24 hours. Severe thunderstorms and tornadoes typically occur during early summer, and continuous snow cover comes anywhere from 1 to 4 months in addition to high winds. And it's usually wet all year. So, yeah, that's all pretty accurate for Wisconsin weather. It snows a lot in the winter and is cold and windy.
Yep. We get about 3 or 4 months of good summer.
Yeah. And you got to try and cram all your fun stuff in those 4 months.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's just kind of hibernating.
That's why the windows are always active in summer, because there's just people out.
Yeah.
Just thanking God that it's not snowing.
Yeah. So here's a little more information about the Baxter Hollow Preserve Trail, which is, I believe, where this case happened, or where they discovered some of the gear from this guy. So All Trails rates it as moderate. It's 6.7 miles. It's about 3.3 miles out and back. It has a very little elevation gain of 652 feet. It takes about 2.5 hours to complete. So it's good for birding, hiking, and running. And
It's a beautiful trail.
yeah, best times to visit April, May. So let's see here. Types of dangers present. So you've got the very ferocious white-tailed deer.
I know, right?
Raccoons. I've seen what they do in Guardians of the Galaxy. Very dangerous. Red fox.
Our state's so vanilla.
I know. Red fox, funny comedian. Coyote, American beaver. You've got a whole variety, a slew of squirrels. Gray fox, red, and southern flying. Even got an eastern chipmunk and a little brown bat. So,
And a little brown, just one of them.
yeah,
Just one little guy out there.
it's okay. We live here, so we can kind of make fun of Wisconsin.
He's adorable, that little brown bat.
We do have some more, predator type animals. So
Yeah, good luck seeing any of them.
if you go far,
If you go far enough north of there.
yeah, if you go up where my in-laws have a cabin, you'll see some of these.
Like around Minnesota and Michigan, just better states.
Blasphemy.
I know. I'm just giving Wisconsin some crap.
So you will sometimes see black bears, American badgers, bobcats, gray wolf, mountain lions, and rattlesnakes. And
In that list, which one would you be the most afraid of running into in Wisconsin?
I'll tell you, hunters way up north are pretty scared of the gray wolf populations. It's been exploding, and they've had dogs killed from it. And
I was going to say probably wolves above anything else in there. I would agree
Yeah.
with you.
and like a lot of farmers and ranchers in northern Wisconsin aren't too happy about the explosion of the gray wolf population because their livestock are being killed by them. But in reality,
Sounds like somebody ought to go take care of business.
okay, go take care of business. But overall, you're probably not going to come across any of these animals in the wild. Safety concerns. It's basically kind of what we've talked about in a lot of these cases. Wildlife, leave them alone. Water risks in Wisconsin, you might come across. There's a lot of lakes, a lot of streams and rivers. A lot of times these lakes and rivers are cold year round. It could be July and the water might still be 60 degrees. So you just got to be conscious of that, hypothermia can set in. It could be 90-degree day out and you jump in cold water and you could get hypothermia. So
Yeah, we can get cold nights,
yeah, it gets cold too at night.
even if it's hot during the day.
Yeah. So just keep an eye on, water temp. Obviously, hiking in hot weather, you want to make sure you're hydrating. Clothing, wear loose fitting, moisture wicking clothing. Try to, keep your skin covered if it's really sunny out because nothing's worse than hiking with sunburns. And obviously, maybe not as big a concern in Wisconsin. This is maybe more if you're in the Southwest, but maybe avoid hiking between the midday, like, 11 a.m. to 3 or 4 p.m. Probably not as big a concern here because there is going to be a lot of tree cover.
I do all of the things you're not supposed to do
Yeah.
here.
But if you're hiking in like Canyonlands in July,
Yes.
You definitely do not want to be hiking in midday. We've actually had a string of people die in Canyonlands.
I just saw, dad and his 21-year-old daughter.
Green Bay, Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Yeah, very sad. And they were texting with 911.
Yeah.
They were communicating. They still couldn't get help in time.
Like, we hiked Canyonlands in late September because we were noobs, and even we're like, we're not hiking in July. That's crazy. I mean, it gets really hot there.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're hiking in the Southwest, don't hike in July.
Yeah.
But it gets in Wisconsin. It can get. We just had a stretch of 90-degree days and really humid, and those are probably days you might not want to go hiking.
Yeah.
Because
it's very humid.
Yeah, heat exhaustion. Just here's some quick signs and symptoms: heavy sweating, weak rapid pulse. Cool, moist skin with goosebumps, faintness or dizziness, fatigue, low blood pressure upon standing, muscle cramps, nausea, and headaches. Heat stroke, which is more serious. High body temperature, 104. Altered mental state, alteration in sweating, nausea, vomiting, flushed skin, rapid breathing, racing pulse, and headaches. So both can be very serious, and, heat stroke will kill you. So... heed the signs if you start experiencing any of that. Terrain in this part of Wisconsin. So the driftless area is known as a biodiversity hotspot with cold water tributary streams in and out of limestone rock formations. There's also a lot of cave systems, sinkholes, and blind valleys are also very abundant. Did you ever, as a kid, go to the Cave in the Mounds?
Yes.
I know in Boy Scouts we camped there in the cave.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, you could camp inside the cave. It was cool.
I didn't have that much fun. I just went for the day.
Oh, well, someday maybe.
something to shoot for.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the Devil's Lake area. I think someone actually fell and died there recently.
There was one death before this most recent one because I was asking one of the rangers there, and they said. There's one where somebody was camping and sleptwalked off of a cliff.
At Devil's Lake.
Yeah.
Wow.
How terrible would that be? Because they woke up.
Yeah.
Like
mid-fall.
Yeah.
That would be terrifying.
Like it'd just be the most confusing 1 second ever.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, we're gonna move on.
Moving on.
I'm gonna talk about James Yoblonski. So James was a male. He was 13 at the time he disappeared. This was only a year ago. So he'd be 14 now. He was about 5'11", 120 pounds, had a half-inch scar on the back of his neck. He had brown hair, was very short, and he was last seen in red shoes, blue jeans, a T-shirt, and a baseball cap. So people described him as quiet and interested in living off the grid. So that kind of is going to give you a little foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
His occupation was he was a child. I love that we fill these in like that. It's like, that he was a child. He had no job. He did have some camping and fishing experience. And in that area, he grew up in that area. So he fished and camped around that area. And when we talk about wilderness in central Wisconsin, it's not that wild. You can't go very far without running into a trailer or road. So there isn't a lot of undeveloped country rolling on forever. You can almost walk in a straight line and hit a road eventually.
And this time of year, I believe he went missing in June. That isn't a time of year where you have to really worry about exposure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very mild.
Yeah.
Night and day. So just to give an idea of what the area is like. So we'll be talking about Bill Yoblonski, which is his father. Scott Steinhorst, he's the Sauk County Sheriff's Office detective. Drew Bunlin is Sauk County Sheriff's Office detective, and they will be on a phone call. We did an interview with them that we'll be going over. So we're just going to go to the interview now, and then we'll do the timeline after. I think that makes the most sense.
During this interview, you'll hear questions asked by myself and Joe, and then as Kylie, who helped research the episode.
Yep. So, without further ado, let's see. I'm going to be
Thanks for having me on, Detective Lieutenant.
Here we go. I'm going to start
Scott.
it over.
Thanks for having me on, Detective Lieutenant Scott Steinhorst with the Sauk County Sheriff's Office. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for about 22 years, and I lead the Detective Division for the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, thanks for having us today. My name is Steve Schramm. I'm a patrol lieutenant with the Sauk County Sheriff's Office. I've been with Sauk County just over 8 years now. I have about 14 years full-time in law enforcement, and I head up the patrol field services division for Sauk County.
I just wanted to ask what your background is, if either of you have any with search and rescue, missing persons, anything along those lines.
Personally speaking, it would be just experience that I've come across in doing the searches. Nothing official, but other than hands-on, actually taking part in them.
Same for me. No formalized training, just on-the-job experience, and just kind of what I've picked up through, reading my own little research, especially going into something like this.
Scott, you've been with the department for 22 years. Have you had other search and rescue operations similar to the one that you were involved in with the current case that we're talking about, or was this pretty unusual for that area?
No, this area is, there's heavy tourism and a lot of hikers and nature lovers that frequent this area, so we've had numerous calls over the years of lost people here.
How many searches have you gone through in the drift list area specifically?
I would say at least a dozen. It might be a little conservative, but I don't have an exact number for you.
Would you say that this area poses a pretty big difficulty level when it comes to searching, whether that be terrain or having other people out and about enjoying nature?
Yes, more so on the terrain and just the sheer size of it. The piece that we were focused on primarily itself is 5,897 acres, and it's all wooded, hilly, rocky, brushy terrain.
How many people did you have at the height of the search?
So I'll speak to that. The first day, as this was kind of evolving, and we were still getting information coming in about what it is that we were maybe going to be dealing with, we initially had resources come from an adjacent county to provide some assistance in the first phase of the search. There was a possibility that we were going to utilize some civilian volunteers as well, but the information that we were getting was holding us back from being able to do that out of concern for the searchers that we were bringing in. So we were primarily focused on having them be law enforcement officers with the proper equipment. I can't tell you off the top of my head how many we had at the peak when we were doing our request through the state for additional officers. I would say a conservative estimate was probably 60 officers, several of the days, maybe more. The first 2 days, I would say we were probably somewhere in the 40s. So maybe even more than that on the third and fourth day, maybe upwards of 70.
Do you think that's one of the larger search parties that you've been a part of? Was this standard for that area, just to get an idea of what's typical in those dozen or so that you've done before?
Yeah, that would have been larger scale than anything I've been involved with before.
Same here. It was a little bit of a different circumstance than what we're normally presented with when we're looking for a missing hiker or somebody who's wandered off and just needs to be found. Essentially, generally, we have a smaller scale area to start searching. Something of this magnitude was the first time that I've been involved in as well. There was a lot more to this one, and generally the other ones we've been a part of resolve themselves usually relatively quickly.
I have another question kind of around the search itself. I know it sounds like you had a lot of boots on the ground. Were you utilizing any other technology in the search?
Yeah, so we had K-9 units from across the state that were brought in, all of them having been specially trained in article searches and tracking and trailing individuals. We had the National Guard provided Black Hawk helicopters on, I believe, 2 separate separate days that were equipped with, I guess I'd call them Army grade FLIR. We had fixed wing come in from State Patrol. Thought we did one day. But I'm not sure if we had, off the top of my head, if we had fixed wing from State Patrol. I know we discussed it one day. The issue we ran into, given the time of year and the density of the forest that we were looking through, is the tree canopy is so thick, and there's not trails. There's very few power lines cut through, so essentially it's an unbroken wilderness. Typical drones with cameras, they're only going to be able to see open areas, of which there were very, very few. So we were somewhat limited in that. We did have some people go in on specific spot checks at night with handheld FLIR units that would also be heat indicating. Pretty much everything that we could think that would be a viable option throughout that week, we tried to bring in and utilize.
So you'd mentioned that there were helicopters as well as handheld FLIR devices and other units that were looking for heat seeking. Did you guys ever pick up on anything that maybe was somebody else that wasn't James, or were you just not getting any readings at all?
I don't believe that we encountered any individual out there that wasn't somebody that we could account for. I mean, it's an open space, so there's no real control over who goes into those places. But given the time of year, there's no hunting seasons. There's not really any viable water for fishing or anything. There's just not a lot of reason for somebody to be in there. Any heat signatures that I can recall picking up on were quickly determined to be wildlife.
Could you just walk me through when he was reported missing to search start, search end?
So I'll start with the report. It would have been around 7:30, I believe, in the morning of the 12th. 7:30.
Yeah, so I was working that morning, and on my way into the office, I had actually passed that van parked alongside Highway 12. It had been checked and tagged for removal by a night shift deputy earlier in the day. So I was monitoring calls in my office, and I saw the call pop up for missing van. I believe is how it initially came in, and I believe that was possibly the same van that I had driven past. So as deputies were dispatched to go to Bill's house to take his initial report for the van missing and his son missing, I was heading down to where I believe that van possibly was. So we were kind of starting off at two different points, working the same incident pretty much from the initial report right away that morning. As I was on scene, obviously I went and double-checked the van again and found the same stuff that had been noted by the night shift deputy earlier that morning. Information started to come in that there was a young gentleman that was possibly associated with that van. As you had kind of alluded to, or your partner kind of alluded to earlier, there was some troubling posts made on social media that we were made aware of, which then led me to believe that James had possibly taken off on foot. We actually happened to have a canine sergeant working as well that day, so I had a few other deputies come down with me, and we had a canine come in. So we had a canine on scene to begin the initial track relatively quickly, and things just started to evolve from there. The more information we were gathering from the family, we were getting reports from parents of James's friends who had found out about some of the social media posts, and our scale and our scope of our scene just started to evolve and expand as we kept getting new information.
I have a quick question about the canine units. So they picked up on the scent. Is that what led you to the initial, I think it was described as like a makeshift camp with some of his belongings?
So, yeah, initially the canines were attracted to the east side of Highway 12. However, given how wind currents work, there was a possibility that scent was getting pulled across the highway and pooling down in the lower areas on the east side of Highway 12. So we began directing some canine units on the west side of the road, and they quickly picked up on and led us to the makeshift campsite where the belongings were a couple hundred yards up in the woods.
How difficult was it to get to where that campsite was located?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it was impassable, but it certainly wasn't a fun hike to get up to that point. Once you went actually beyond that, further west, it got really nasty. I would think the place that we located that camp was about the last really hospitable place on that hillside, and it was in a relatively open area.
Did the dog just not hit on that scent ever again, or was it just between the west side and the east side of the freeway up into that camp?
From there, we deployed dogs on multiple occasions. We were never able to get anything definitive to go on. Anything that the dog even possibly indicated on, we put units in those areas and just flooded it looking for any sign of James having been there. And as we continued to check those out, unfortunately, we were coming up empty.
The terrain itself is very unforgiving. Plus, it was starting to get very, very hot outside. We were having issues with the searchers getting fatigued and heat-related stuff going on.
As the week went on, we had several officers sustain injuries. I mean, I don't want to undersell just how brutal this particular area of timber is. Obviously, this is part of the unglaciated area, and because of the variable range, we were basically walking on rocks and boulders that would shift under your feet. The vines and undergrowth was extremely thick. It was brutal conditions to send guys into, and we had several injuries, including one that had to go to the hospital. Part of the decision made at the end of the week was due to the continued risk of putting more people out there, and that somebody was going to get injured. Part of it was due to the heat, and then also just going along with what our detectives were finding and some of the information we were getting, that there was certain was there and he was trying to avoid us, that our efforts were only continuing to push him further. And all of that was we discussed with the family prior to making a final determination on that Friday as to what we were going to do.
I have two more questions kind of related. So after the search was suspended, have you or has local law enforcement continued to receive any public tips? And then are there any plans in the future to do any more subsequent searches?
So I'll answer the first part about the tips and the leads that have come in. Yes, there's been lots and lots of them. And as I alluded to earlier, unfortunately, we've chased them down and come up empty-handed. As far as subsequent searches in the future, I'm not sure on that. If we were to find evidence or someone else was to find evidence and lead us to that would point us in a different direction up there, certainly we would follow up on that and start searching again. But to this point, we haven't gotten anything. And this land is heavily utilized during the hunting season. So, I mean, we went through one full deer season now this past fall, and then spring turkey this past spring, and we didn't get any subsequent calls. We had reached out to the public ahead of hunting season, just and asked if they saw anything up in there, obviously, to get a hold of us and let us know, and we did not get any information that way.
And we have done, in the weeks following the initial suspension of the mass searching, there were spot checks that were conducted anytime we had anything come in, or even the thought of poring over maps and data and thinking, well, maybe we didn't spend enough time in this area, or this small pocket was overlooked. Smaller teams were sent back out for a couple of weeks after that, a few of which I took part in as well. And then, as Lieutenant Steinhorst alluded to, if we get a viable tip on anything that's out in any of these territories that we've been looking through, we are certainly ready and able at any hour of the day to respond should something come in that can justify that.
I do have one question I just thought of real quick, because I know you guys have to get off soon. I appreciate your time. Just in all the search and rescue you've done, what's the success rate been like?
In all the ones that I've done, this has been the first one where we haven't found the person.
Really?
Same for me.
Is it mostly people that are hiking in the state park around Devil's Lake that go missing or wander off, or what's the typical search that you're going for?
Yes, that would be correct. It'd be somebody out generally that's hiking or a lost hunter.
Okay.
We also have had searches for if it's a dementia patient that possibly wanders away from home. We've had juveniles, young juveniles go missing that are, either in an unfamiliar area or they just start wandering away from home and don't know how to get back. But utilizing the same resources that we did to find James, we've been very successful up until this point.
I really was drawn to this case. Kylie is the one that brought it to us and did a lot of the research. But when I was reading about it, it does seem odd the way things happened, how quickly the search started after he supposedly parked that van on the side of the road. The fact that the dogs couldn't get a scent, the fact that you weren't seeing any of the heat signatures. Do you guys have any personal theories or what you think might have happened or where that James could potentially be?
Throughout this whole thing, we haven't operated on speculation whatsoever. It's all been evidence-based and what we've been able to put together as far as facts. And unfortunately, no. We found his belongings in the woods there, and we've been chasing down leads and tips ever since and have come up empty-handed thus far.
Were you able to account for all of his belongings, like between what his father said or what showed in the video? Was everything that you guys found everything that he brought out, or is there potentially still gear or things that were not accounted for?
For the most part, as you can imagine, Dad obviously had a lot of stress going on and trying to keep track of all the belongings. It's possible that he might have said something was missing when it actually wasn't. We did have information that there was a handgun missing from the father's business. That has not been recovered, but we haven't definitively been able to say that James is the one that took that.
Oh, interesting. So it's did he have access to that where that handgun was stored, and they're just not positive if it was maybe taken by somebody else, or how would where does he think that handgun went?
It's a possibility that he had access to it. It was from a business, and obviously there were other employees there too. So again, I don't want to speculate.
Oh, okay.
But it is a possibility.
I have another, just a quick question. So is local law enforcement, first, is the case, the missing persons case, I assume is still open, and are the local law enforcement treating this as kind of a missing persons case, or do you suspect foul play in this and are treating this more as a criminal case?
Yes, the case is open first and foremost, and we're actively working it. It's still a missing persons case. We have not come across anything throughout the investigation that has led us to the criminal side of things.
There's one thing that I saw in looking up some of the background in this one. Did you have interviews with his mother who was out of contact? She wasn't really involved in his life at all.
Yes, we did interview her on several occasions, and you are correct in saying that they were not on speaking terms at that time or in contact with one another.
The mother wasn't in contact with James or the husband, or just kind of the whole family?
Kind of the whole family.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one of the things that I was wondering about. I was like, okay, did he get in contact with her and leave to go stay with her or something like that? I could imagine a young boy would miss his mom. Do you feel that it's an unrelated thing and she wasn't a part of his decision to leave?
We followed up with her, and we did not come across any evidence that she had anything to do with this disappearance. I'd just like to close with, if any of your listeners have any information or anything that, no matter how small they might think it is, if they could pass that on related to this case. Like I said, we're still searching for tips and leads, so if anybody knows anything, we'd be glad to hear from them and take their call and take down their information and follow up on what information they have.
Excellent. Is it a number, website? How can they get a hold of you?
Sure, they can call in to our dispatch center at 608-355-4495.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll put that in the show notes too. Thank you very much, Detective Lieutenant Scott Steinhorst and Patrol Lieutenant Steve Schramm. Thank you for taking the time today and giving us a little insight into what it was like looking for James. And I'm sure our listeners, if they have anything, will call the number and hopefully we can help out.
Thank you.
We're back.
We're back. So that was the interview by not James Yoblonski, Steve Schramm and Scott Steinhorst.
The case.
Yeah, no, Scott Steinhorst and
Yes.
Steve Schramm, thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
so
taking the
much.
time and doing that with us. It was really nice because when I was checking on I was helping with the research in the show, and when I was going through the notes, there was a lot of different information.
Yeah.
And it's really nice talking to the officers that worked the case, that were involved in it from the beginning. So what we're going to do is recap basically the timeline and then speak through kind of our theories. I know you heard from them. They're not willing to really give up what they think.
Joe tried
I tried.
a couple times.
But they're doing their job, so that's
Yes.
good for them. So we're going back to June 12th, 2023, 12:52 a.m. So this is when the security footage catches him leaving the house. And I'll actually throw that up on the screen because we have pictures of that. So here's the security footage of him walking to the van, and then this one is him actually starting the van and driving away.
This is from the house where he lived at?
Yeah, this is
Okay.
like the Ring doorbell type
Yeah.
deal. He was seen carrying 2 bags and wearing a backpack, and it wasn't noticed he was gone until about 7 a.m. So James was believed to be driving around in the family's van throughout the area with one confirmed stop between Lake Delton and Reedsburg. So timestamps on the video show James driving away in the van nearly 7 minutes after walking out of the house with a backpack and a duffel. This is 12:52 a.m. Just after 3 a.m. that same morning, James arrived at his father's golf cart business, and 54 minutes later, he drove away from the shop. And it just shows that he had these stops. So up on the screen, that's what these are. These are the stops they know that he made.
Yeah. So
So-
we heard in the interview that there was a handgun missing.
Yes. And so they're not going to speculate, which is
But
their job, because they're not going to
We'll
say it.
speculate.
Yeah, we can speculate. I think he probably took it if he's going to
Yeah.
be going out in the woods and surviving.
And he happened to stop by the business where the gun was stored.
For-
and now the gun is missing.
The longest amount of time.
Yeah.
Yes. So around 7 a.m. on the 13th, Bill, that's James's father, realized in the morning that James was gone and took the family van and his phone. So Bill can be heard yelling through the family security camera, trying to locate and call for help. So that's also when, roughly around the same time that the officer drove by, and here's the picture of the van on the side of the road.
Yeah.
So he said he drove by that van on the way into work.
Yeah.
And just kind of noticed it, and then all of a sudden he's like, he got the call that there was a missing, and that was the van, and he realized exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild.
That's interesting. He would take the dad's cell phone. You got to wonder, why would he do that?
I think we'll find out.
Okay.
Later.
We'll find out later.
We'll have some idea of
Okay.
what was going on. So a statewide missing persons alert was issued. Patrol cars were sent out in search of the missing van, which was found on the side of Highway 12. It was tagged for removal, dating from an earlier morning that night. So some cops stopped by and they put the stickers on the thing to say like it's time to get towed if it's not gone.
Yeah.
But James was not found in sight. So as we said, Lieutenant Steve Schramm was heading into work when he passed the van that was reported. So K-9 units from the Sauk County Sheriff's Department were sent out that morning during the initial search. They caught scent on the east side of Highway 12, and as he said in the call, they believe the wind might have redirected it, so they went on the west side. And here's a little map, if you're watching the screen, of kind of the search area on each side of the highway.
And we've learned throughout different cases that it's not an exact science using canine search dogs. It really is highly dependent on climate conditions of the area, wind direction,
Yes.
humidity. So it's not a slam dunk. You would think like, oh, he was just there. Why can't the canines pick up on a scent? Well, there's a lot of varying factors that can affect
Yeah, and he said, and that's what's cool about these units is the guys that are working with the dogs know exactly how the dogs operate. So he even said, we noticed the wind and realized it's probably blowing over. And then they were correct because they found an abandoned campsite.
Yeah.
So as said in the call, they found the abandoned campsite. I just lost my spot. I'm sorry. They had K-9 units involved, Black Hawk helicopter from the National Guard, roughly 40 searchers for the first 2 days and 60 in the following days. Scott Steinhorst and Steve Schramm didn't have formal training when it comes to search and rescue, just knowledge from their prior searches. But as you heard in the interview, this is the first person they were unable to recover.
Yeah. And I mean, they had a massive, for this area, massive search operation going on.
Absolutely.
So,
Including, like they said, the spot checks at night.
and you know what? I don't think people listening might be like, well, how do they not know how to conduct searches? You got to remember, like, this part of the country, it's not very common for people to go missing like this. This isn't like some mountainous region or, the vast national parks in the western part of the U.S. This kind of thing just doesn't happen that often here. So
or it does, but they're just found right away because it's not vast and rugged.
So we don't probably have the extensive network of search and rescue operations out here like they do in the western part of the U.S. So it's much more common for law enforcement agencies out here to kind of, they'll learn on the job with searches. Now, that's not to say their searches are any less effective.
They were up at 100% until this one. So, I mean,
but I was just,
an atypical one.
If you've listened to our episodes, usually these are pretty sophisticated searches from organizations that just do search and rescue, and you just don't have that kind of operation for the most part in a place like Wisconsin.
Sure. There's no need, really.
Yeah.
So they found no sign of him. On June 16th, ground searches were called off. The terrain in that area was extremely rugged. It's rocky and thick. You could be standing 6 feet apart and not see each other. That's what Scott Steinhorst said. So after some minor injuries, the search was called off, stating it was too dangerous to continue. So from the interview, they said searchers were getting fatigued in an unforgiving terrain. One of the injuries sustained sent one of the searchers to the hospital. So other than the van on the side of the road and a makeshift campsite with James's belongings in the woods, nothing was really found. So here are just some details that we uncovered with them and just from other news reports. So they discovered through Bill, that's James's father, that some of the family's survival books were missing and that James had previously expressed interest in off-grid living. The handgun, as we talked about, was suspected to be in his possession but cannot be confirmed that James was the one to take it. So there was no evidence that a disturbance happened, so both at the van and the makeshift campsite. So they don't think somebody may have attacked him.
Yeah.
James did post a video on social media the night he left in which he stated, "For everyone who cares about me, it's not their fault. It's no one's fault. It's my fault. I'm not processing anything. My brain is something happened to it." And I actually do have that recording. I'll play it.
Okay.
It wasn't all of the Snapchats because they delete after a little bit, but this was one that was recorded. If I can open it, there we go.
Who cares about me? It's not their fault. It's no one's fault. It's my fault. I feel like I want to explain it, but I don't know how. I'm scared. I'm sad. I have no emotions anymore. I've lost them. I'm not processing anything. My brain is... something happened to it.
So it's a little ominous.
Yeah, that's troubling.
It's very troubling. That's kind of... So it is unknown what James is referencing. Speculation was it's possibly suicidal or something else. Bill doesn't believe this is how James would talk, more like he was reading something. So Bill also willingly took a polygraph test on his possible involvement and passed, so he's proven not to be involved in the disappearance.
Okay.
One other thing was James' parents were going through a divorce at the time, and his mother was not in contact with the family. She was investigated. She was ruled out as a possible reason for James leaving or having to do with his disappearance. But from what it sounded like, she was not in contact with anyone in the family.
Yeah.
Just kind of completely separated.
So it was probably pretty easy for law enforcement to rule her out.
Well, that was one of the things I thought of initially when I was learning about it was you have a young man who's kind of in puberty.
Yeah.
And his parents go through divorce. Maybe he's just missing his mom.
Yeah.
Communicating to her on the side or something, and then just develop this plan to like run away and go be with her. But it sounds like, again, she was not in contact with anybody. It sounded like she was kind of not interested in being a part of the family.
Yeah.
And the police ruled her out. So I assume they definitely looked into that. If they had the dad take a polygraph test, it sounds like they've been being very thorough.
Yeah.
So there was a $10,000 reward offered for any information on James's whereabouts, in addition to a GoFundMe to help support the search efforts. The public was asked to keep an eye out for clues or James during the fall deer hunting season and spring turkey season, but nothing was reported. And that's usually in our state. Again, we don't have huge, vast areas. There's some big spaces, but so many people go hunting, there's always reports of them uncovering some stuff or
I mean, I
finding
will
things.
say northern Wisconsin is very vast, but this
Yeah.
is central Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Much more populated, which makes this that much more baffling that he hasn't been found. Like, the remains haven't been found yet. I guess it's only been a year.
Yeah,
So
it's still very fresh.
yeah.
So, theories, law enforcement, you obviously heard they're not going to speculate, but they did say that no evidence was found of criminal involvement. So they seem fairly positive that it wasn't.
Sounds like the dad kind of thinks there is, though.
So the father believed James wouldn't run off without talking to somebody. So he
Yeah.
believes either James was picked up on the side of Highway 12 where the van was found, or someone was waiting for him. He said he possibly believes he could have gone to Colorado, but not confirmed.
I mean, we've seen this before. I think it's a real sad thing that happens a lot of times. Family can't process that something like, one of their loved ones could do something like this, so they always speculate it probably was foul play or something when and we've thought a lot of times that it might have been foul play. I think, I don't know if we're jumping right into theories.
It's time.
Okay. I mean,
You're all thrown for a loop.
Yeah.
Switching jobs.
I know. I know. Yeah, this is I'm out of my wheelhouse here. The second wheel. No, I think the video that he posted, the audio that we listened to, obviously we don't have the video of it. That to me sounds like someone who is suffering with some mental health issues.
Absolutely.
And it's very concerning to me that he allegedly, we don't know this for fact, but it seems like all evident, law enforcement won't say this, but it kind of seems logical that he went to the business that got the handgun. After hearing the audio of him, I would be very concerned about self-harm at that point.
Yeah.
That's probably my leading theory. I mean, could it be foul play? To what end? Is it just some crazy person that kidnapped him and then made him read that? I don't know. That wouldn't make any sense to me. Not if that audio of him didn't exist. If we didn't know that, I don't know that you could,
Yeah, that's a big part. And I don't know what the other two, because there were 3 videos.
Yeah.
I don't know what the other 2 were.
And it sounds like this actual area of Wisconsin, now we've both been to Devil's Lake, but we've not been to this specific area. It sounds like this area is pretty tough terrain. That
It's rugged.
Rugged enough that searchers were getting hurt and suffering from heat exhaustion. So, for a 13-year-old kid that, he probably wasn't that experienced, at that age. Probably more than he could handle in that terrain. Maybe he didn't plan to self-harm and he just wanted to go out in the woods and recharge or, go off grid for a while and maybe end up getting hurt or got lost. I mean, we always talk about, we don't know what kind of gear he had with him.
Yeah.
We don't know his ability to track in the wilderness and navigate. So maybe he got lost and then injured, and then searchers just didn't find him. Like you said, the police said, this is very heavy tree cover, so it'd be very hard to find anything from the air. You would almost have to step on evidence to find it in this kind of environment. So maybe he just hasn't been found yet. A lot of deer hunters are out in that area, so I would suspect if his remains are in that area, at some point they'll be found.
So you think maybe bad accident and they haven't found him yet?
I think my number one theory is suicide, sadly. Just based on hearing, you could hear the tone of his voice.
Mm-hmm.
Like he sounded like he was in some real pain.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And people in that condition, and he had a handgun with him. Allegedly, we don't know for sure, but it seems like he took the handgun from the dad's business. And now it makes a little more sense about the phone. Maybe he took the phone to give himself more time.
Well, and they think I forget, and I can't believe it wasn't in the notes, but I read it somewhere. Someone speculated that he had his own phone, but it didn't have a data plan.
Oh, okay.
So he might have been using his dad's phone as a hotspot.
Okay. Or to use GPS or.
Well, just have internet while
Okay.
out in the wilderness.
Okay. Well,
But
yeah.
but he then ditched the phone on the other side of the freeway from where his camp was. So maybe he understood that they're going to track it, and he threw him off the trail.
Interesting.
So all of that stuff is, I would agree with you emotionally. His state was very poor.
Yeah.
100%. You could tell there's a lot of hurt there. It's very, very sad for such a young man. But his actions after that, I don't think it was self-harm.
I guess he did set up a camp.
That's kind of where it's, and I'm going off of I'm not an expert in this, but when you read about this, I've had family members that have had that happen and had issues. There's patterns that they typically follow.
Yeah.
That you can see, I'd say like more statistically, and he wasn't exhibiting those types of patterns. I would give the fact that I would say personally, it's like an 89 to 90% chance he's the one that has the gun, because if it's his dad's business, and he knows there's one in the safe and he's there and he notices, I'm sure he opens the safe every day.
Yeah.
So if it was like gone a week ago, he'd mention it. Mm-hmm. It was overnight.
Yeah.
So
and he just happened to stop there that night.
Yeah, for almost an hour.
Yeah.
So I think he took it, but I think he went to do more of like the kid who went to the bus in Alaska, who's like disillusioned with life. What's his? I always forget his name. Is Into the Wild? The movie's on him.
Yeah, I can't. I
always forget his name. McLeese.
We've talked about it like a dozen times.
John McCandless or McCandless. It's like that. It's like it's something like that. Chris McCandless or something like that. He was kind of disillusioned with life, and he didn't go off himself. He went and did what his like heart wanted.
Yeah.
So if this kid had this proclivity for off-grid outdoor living, it sounded like someone who kind of had enough, but didn't go the route of self-harm and went the route of, I'm 14, I'm going to drive the van and I'm going to go live in the woods.
All right.
Still a rash decision.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to pack up stuff, I'm going to go get a gun, and I'm going to go make camp, and I'm just going to go live off grid. Like, I'm over it. I'm over it. Like, that was his way of checking out. And I would say the most explainable thing is that I'm kind of on the boat with you in the second half of like got injured and
wasn't prepared.
Yeah. It was an emotional time and an emotional decision. So you're not going to be thinking clearly, even if he did know what he was doing.
Yeah.
If he's that emotional, you might not be thinking clearly.
Yeah. You know what? I think you sold me on it. Yeah. I think, for me, suicide now is number 2 theory. I think I forgot about the camp.
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily set up a camp if your end goal was, some type of self-harm. So I think, maybe one of the logical explanations is he probably went out there unprepared, maybe got lost, and then in that rugged terrain injured himself and succumbed to those injuries, and searchers just didn't find him.
Yeah.
Didn't find his remains.
I have a second theory.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it.
And it plays more into giving him maybe a lot of credit.
Okay.
And maybe not working. This one's, I would say, almost on off the deep end. It's not like Aliens off the deep end. I'd say it's plausible off the deep end.
It's not Hodag off the deep end.
No, it's a plausible off the deep end. If he was in that state for real, he'd be someone that's been searching for answers, especially at that age. I was wondering if he maybe was in conversations with someone on the internet.
Okay.
And maybe not in, I won't say in like a negative, creepy sense, in the sense of maybe he met somebody that like said, hey, and his dad specifically
like
mentioned
a survivalist type.
Or just like someone who's not normal, but is like, hey kid, like I'll come pick you up. You can live with me. Like, and they worked out an elaborate plan. Like, all right, you're going to go take your dad's phone. We'll communicate on your app.
We'll set up a camp like you went out camping. And
go set up a camp and I'll pick you up, and then they'll just go somewhere and he'll live. So like kind of on his own merit.
Yeah.
That was one I thought of. And then the worst version of that would be like an abduction type situation where he's talking to someone online and they coaxed him into doing that. Like I said, I think that's more Hollywood off the deep end.
Yeah.
Like a movie. But yeah, I
like
can't,
a Unabomber type, like said, "Yeah, come live with me in the mountains."
Yeah, and maybe he's been in. If he loved off-grid living, he's on Reddit or
Yeah.
4chan on like off-grid channels.
Yeah.
And talking to people, and maybe met with someone who's like, "All right, come, we live in the woods and we're making this militia.
Like a
come stay
commune
here."
type.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, I mean, young men.
that's why I said plausible off the deep end.
I will say this, as once long ago, I was a young dude,
A youngin.
a youngin. Us young guys are pretty stupid at that age, and can be convinced to do a lot of dumb stuff. So maybe for an
And
off.
that's prime challenge authority time too.
Yeah.
So
And, that's a good
you're-
off the deep end.
Your parents are going through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You're kind of having an identity crisis. I mean, I had a pretty stable childhood, and I had identity crisis when I was that
I did
age.
too. But yeah, everyone at that age, guys especially at that age, are
so
pretty stupid.
Yeah, you add extra pressure on
Yeah.
someone. Like, it's so sad, and I bet that was just anything would seem better.
Yeah.
So that's why I said plausible off the deep end. That's a pretty
Plausible
elaborate.
off the deep
it's
end.
elaborate story.
We rarely have plausible off the deep
Yeah.
end. Usually it's like vortices and
Yeah.
hodags. But okay, I do like that plausible off the deep end. I would give that a 5% chance, not 0.
I like it because to me it holds out hope that he's okay.
Yeah, it's
And
only been a year.
That's what I kind of hope that's the case, and that everyone is out looking for him, but maybe he gets better and comes back and reunites with his family, and I like that version better.
Yeah, the other two theories that I think are probably what happened are not great.
No, but I think they're a possibility.
But
as well.
the thing about the wandering or getting lost or whatever, the only problem with that theory is the search happened pretty quick.
It happened within an hour or two.
Yeah. So
That's why I think
how far could he have gotten?
That's kind of why I
from
think
the camp?
if you're getting a ride somewhere, you're
Yeah.
gone, and they're going to be spending all their time in that area for the
Yeah.
whole week, and you can in 2 days be at the other side of the country.
Or maybe you could just maybe not an abduction, but hitchhiking. It looked like.
Well, I'm saying my plausible off the deep end,
Yeah.
he's going to a commune in the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
That is a 15, 16-hour drive.
Yeah.
By the time they're mostly into the search, you could be at your destination.
Yeah.
In the center of the country. So, yeah, I don't know. I want to go with my off the deep end one because it's more optimistic, and I really hope that he's okay and that he does come home. So I'm going to go with my off the deep end theory.
All right. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with your first theory before you turned into
The realistic one?
Well, most likely.
Okay.
I mean, but yeah, I'm hoping your off the deep end theory is correct, because that means he's alive.
Yes.
So, let us know what you think happened to James. This is we always say it, this is a puzzling one. I thought I had it all figured out when I said my theory.
And then I threw some curveballs.
And you threw some curveballs.
I spent a lot of time thinking about it. So
yeah, so I'm a little more confused. I don't know what to believe. So Joe's off the deep end theory is kind of growing on me a little.
There you go. Well, we want you all to share your thoughts and theories on social medias and the website. You can call the number and let us know. Email us. But thanks again for tuning into our show. We appreciate all of you for listening and sharing Locations Unknown with your friends and family. Be sure to like and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, where you can find all the videos of each episode. And also, if you'd like to support the show monetarily, please visit our website or Facebook store to buy some sweet, sweet swag. Additionally, you can subscribe to our Patreon accounts, YouTube, on Apple. Spotify is connected to Patreon. Now X, pretty soon Facebook. And like we said, if you're bad with money, just subscribe to all of them.
Or old-fashioned way, money in an envelope.
Yeah, money in an envelope. But there's going to be extra episodes, especially if you want to hear the Bear NATO.
I'm excited for this.
The Bear. You're going to want to maybe just even subscribe for a month.
Yeah.
Just to get this one. But lastly, when enjoying the beauty of nature, whether backpacking, camping, or simply taking a walk, always remember to leave no trace. Thanks, and we will see you all next time.